heard of this story? Okay, so 2 of you. Blah, blah. How many of you are from Purvis or surrounding area? Okay, it's really interesting. So, this one, all over the world, there is something about particular bridges or roads that have a history attached that can be a little spookier than others. And let's be honest, have you ever walked in a house and you felt just a little bit different? Ooh, I got a vibe here. So there are numerous stories like this, especially all over Mississippi. Well, there's one nearby on Burnt Bridge Road. There's 2 legends about it. One is that a young lady was on her way to prom. She was in a car accident and she lost her head. And now sometimes you'll see a lady in her prom dress looking for her head on Burnt Bridge Road. Kind of spooky and eerie. The other is that during World War times, there was a woman her husband was dodging the draft. And he was hiding in the woods out here. And she was trying to carry him supplies. And then she perished in an accident. And she's still trying to reach her husband. And sometimes you'll see her up and down the road. It's a very popular story sometimes that you'll hear and kids will go driving down the road. Oh, we wrote about one here recently called the 3-Legged Woman. You heard the story of the 3-Legged Woman? Mississippi State students sometimes know the 3-Legged Woman. South of Starkville, a lot of college students will go to Nash Road, and it is creepy. It is such a creepy road. It's one of those. And the story goes, if you're driving along, your car may stall, or you'll hear a knock on the side, or you'll hear something on top of your car, but you might hear an extra foot come down. And the 3-Legged Woman is known to give chase. It's really interesting road spooky tales, but this one's in Purvis. Have you heard of the Cahill House? Anyone raise your hand if you've heard of the Cahill House? This one gives me the heebie-jeebies, okay? There are a few, because when we hear these stories of folklore, we don't just record them. It's really important that we don't just find something online and we regurgitate it as it is. 1, it might be inaccurate. 2, I haven't added anything to the world about this. So when we find something, we go to the community, we talk to locals about it, we try to get to the earliest version of the story as possible. And so we do that for all the stories. The Yalobusha County Bell Witch one scared me. I was very nervous going here. Why I took my kids there, I have no idea. Maybe because they're slower and I can get away. The Cahill House is really creepy. The house is no longer there, and there's a reason for that. But this is your conjuring house, basically. This is your Amityville house. Mississippi has one, and there's a famous history connected to it. So it was originally built, and it is said to have been haunted. Some clues associated with it. During World War I time, and even II, it was used as like a, almost like a USO house for soldiers to go to and party and let loose. Because soldiers would be stationed nearby and go for it, right? Well, sometimes they get into a lot of trouble. It is said, but not documented, that some people have been killed there. But the hauntings didn't seem to occur until the next family owned the house, okay? Dr. Kendall Gregory and his wife Jenny moved in, and some odd things began to happen. At first, it was very small things, such as, weird knocks, sounding like someone's walking upstairs, usually always in the second story. But they started to advance. Really, really weird things began to happen. And they always thought it was haunted, but it wasn't violent yet, okay? And then they got a letter in the mail saying, get out. You have to get out of that house. I had a dream about you dying in that house. You have to leave. I'm too scared to come there myself. I'm a psychic, I'm a medium. look me up. You've got to get out of that house. Could you imagine getting a letter like that? And it coincided with stuff they were already feeling, and then that just like, okay, this is messed up. This is the lady, they think, who sent the letter, Maria Duvall. She was a famous psychic and medium. Later, she got into a lot of trouble because people took her name and kind of ran it under the ground big time. That's the man who owned the house. They had a walkway of wisteria that you had to walk this tunnel to get into the house. They say it was beautiful. So things started to escalate. When President Kennedy died, the curtains in the windows began to bleed blood. And all over their house, top to bottom, blood ran down the walls. No one believed them. They had a team of doctors and police come in. They tested the blood all over the house. It was real human blood all over the house. Really freaky stuff. So there was this medium from Tennessee named David Bubar. Apparently he has a record album that teaches you how to perform seances too. So if anyone's interested, Purvis Library next week. Yeah. That would be really creepy. I don't know. He heard about this house and he says, let me come perform a seance. They get up into that second floor, they perform a seance, and all of a sudden he starts speaking through a voice that's a woman's voice. She said, and through him, she says, her name is Flossie, and the soldiers had been there and partying, and they shot and killed her there. And it scared everyone to death. There's also supposedly a little boy spirit at the top of the house. And they freaked out, obviously. That's messed up. That is horror movie stuff. And they said, what do we do? He said, the only way that I can think of to get rid of these spirits, you have to burn your house to the ground. And they did. He helped them. They burnt their house to the ground. The first time didn't take, so they burned it again because there were still walls standing. Isn't that wild? Of course, they got in trouble for that because you can't just burn your house down. So they got a lot of trouble for that, but that's why the house is no longer standing. Some of the newspaper clippings. It's really eerie and spooky stuff, right? See how we're doing on time. We're doing okay. Another local one.